Hello and welcome to the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. I'm Sean Hammond, Shaw Local Bears beat reporter. He's Michael Dwojak, sports reporter extraordinaire. It's week 3 in the NFL. We got some Bears and Colts action to preview. Caleb Williams against Anthony Richardson at the quarterback spot. Another fun matchup of young quarterbacks who have a lot of promise. I know we'll talk a bunch about Anthony Richardson. Michael, how you feeling this week heading into this game, and I guess after digesting for a couple more days what we saw on Sunday night?
I feel like we're all excited to kind of see what adjustments they're going to make, right? Like, I feel like after 2 weeks, you're kind of like, oh, like this is what it kind of looks like. Like, what are they going to do differently? How are they going to run the offense differently? How different can this offensive line be? So I feel like the Bears are really entering a critical stretch here of the next 5 games where, the schedule is fairly easier right now. So you need to figure things out pretty quickly. And I'm very curious to see, what those changes and what those adjustments kind of look like as we head into Sunday's game against the Colts.
Yeah, as is life in the NFL. There's not a lot of time to adjust and bounce back. You're on to the next opponent, and that's kind of the case for all 17 games, other than your bye week. It's a grind, it's a slog, it's tough to make in-season adjustments, and really, like, the way these coaches look at this too is every single game is different. Like, the opponent is different, the strengths and weaknesses, the way you're going to attack different opponents is different every week. And so, that kind of brings us to the Colts, who, on paper through 2 games, they are, the defense can't seem to stop the run. And of course, we've documented well that the Bears offense has not gotten much of a running game going these first 2 weeks. On paper anyway, this looks like a pretty favorable matchup. DeForest Buckner, the Colts' top defensive tackle, went on IR this week. So that's a big loss for them. I mean, he's their guy. That's their star along that defensive line, and he's gone. Laiatu Latu, the first-round draft pick from UCLA, the edge rusher, is dealing with some injuries this week. A hip injury, has not practiced. We'll see what happens there. But, I mean, I think you look at this, I think there's an opportunity for the Bears to get right on that offensive line. Right, Michael?
Yeah, I feel like there's a really good opportunity. And when we talk about, keys to the game, it's obviously going to be run the ball, right? Like, I feel like that's the only thing that Bears fans are going to be looking for. And I'm kind of curious to see, does the offensive line let you do that? Does Shane Waldron let you do that? So that's going to be a really big thing right now, because obviously we know if you, get the running game going, then obviously that opens things up in the passing game, and then makes everything look much better than it has the first couple weeks. And I'm really curious just to see, talking with Shane Waldron, he was kind of iffy about talking about, what is Roschon Johnson's role going to look like? How much are we going to see maybe more splits between Herbert and Swift? I feel like that's the major thing right now. It's like, can this offensive line create holes for this running back room? And can they run downhill as opposed to what they were doing the first couple weeks, where it just seemed like they were running into, large masses of guys and finding holes and, really creating many opportunities for Swift and the other running backs whenever they did get a chance to get back there.
If you're watching live with us on YouTube, do us a favor and hit the thumbs up. That's a great way to support the show. If you're listening later on Spotify or Apple, do us a favor, give us a review, and please consider subscribing to the show too. And be sure to head to shawlocal.com for all of our Bears coverage. Thanks to everyone who's joining us live. I see some of our friends, our regulars in the chat. Thank you guys for joining us this morning. Like always, or I should say, we kind of went away from the schedule this week because of that late game Sunday night, but we're going to try to do Monday, Friday every single week throughout the season. That obviously can change if there's a primetime game in there, if there's a Monday, a Thursday, there will be a few of those. But generally speaking, we want to join you guys 10 a.m. Monday and Friday throughout the season. We'll preview the action on Fridays. We'll recap the game on Monday. Keep an eye out on our Twitter pages. I'm Sean_Hammond. He's MDwojak94. We're going to tweet out when we're going live. If you're listening after the fact, you can join us live on YouTube. You can see our pretty faces and admire my posters in the background and Michael's bookshelf. And we can talk some Bears. You guys can join the conversation in the comments. We'll get to some of your Bears questions in a little bit. But, injuries, I know that's on Fridays especially. That's something that everybody wants to know about. Keenan Allen has not practiced yet this week. It's Friday morning. We don't have the Friday injury report. So it's possible that changes Friday afternoon. It's possible that he gets back out there, but hasn't practiced since week 1, didn't play in the week 2 game. I mean, are you concerned about this moving forward, Michael?
I feel like it a little bit, yes. Obviously, we knew that they were, heading into the season, we knew Keenan wasn't going to play a full, season by any means, just based on his history and that kind of stuff. But, you could tell the first couple weeks they're really missing him. Like Caleb is really missing him as a safety net up the middle. So, it's a little bit concerning right now, especially with the heel issue. Those can kind of nag you for a long time, depending on what kind of heel injury it is. It seemed like Matt Eberflus was kind of just like when he talked with the media this week about it, it seemed like it was more of a pain tolerance kind of thing, and just kind of dealing with it. Obviously, we don't know specifically how bad the injury is and that sort of stuff, but it is a bit concerning because obviously you brought him over, you traded a mid-round draft pick for him to bring him over. It doesn't seem like they're coming to a way of extending him or anything like that. So you basically traded a draft pick that I know a lot of Bears fans are like, you could have used that draft pick on an offensive lineman for him to give that stability and kind of experience. And obviously you've seen the clips of him talking to Caleb on the sideline, and that's all great, but it's better for him to be on the field. So it is concerning. It's obviously something that seems like it's going to be a nagging injury for a little bit here, and it's kind of interested to see what the Bears are going to do. Do they place him on IR, shut him down, and try to get this thing right? Is this like something you need to kind of go into and kind of do like a minor surgery and figure things out? Like, it's very interesting just to see what is the threshold at this point for when the Bears are kind of like, we need to shut him down. He's not even practicing at this point. Maybe that's better than even trying to get him on the bike or anything like that.
Yeah, obviously we don't really know what the injury is. They list it as a heel. I mean, that could mean just about anything. So it's hard to really say how bad this is. And I mean, it's a good sign that he's not on IR. Like you can say that for sure. The heel was something that he dealt with late last season. He missed the last 4 games of the year with the heel injury. And so, I mean, I think if it was something that could have been addressed via surgery, I think that would have happened. And maybe it's just one of those things where it's kind of nagging and it's not going to go away. I mean, this is an older wide receiver. I hate to say that because he's not an old dude, but in football terms, he's an old wide receiver. He's one of the 10 oldest in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
And nobody expected him to play the full 17 game slate. It's just unfortunate that this is happening already. And if you're a Bears fan, I know I've heard people mention and on Twitter and talking about the Bears, to get an easy throw for Caleb, where are the slants? Like, well, Keenan Allen would be the guy for that. He's right. That's what he does. I know DJ Moore can do that too. Of course, all these guys can do it, but I mean, he is that's why you brought him here. And just to look at some other injury stuff too. Tevin Jenkins is dealing with a thigh injury this week, but I don't think that that's a big issue. He returned to practice on Thursday. Matt Eberflus didn't really sound worried about it. The other guys who have not practiced yet this week are fullback Kari Blasingame, who also missed week 2, defensive tackle Zach Pickens, who tried to go in week 2 and then was shut down midway through the game. And that's really it. There's a bunch of guys who are listed as limited, but I mean, if they're out there practicing in a limited capacity, I don't think I'd be too worried about it. Andrew Billings, Nate Davis, Travis Homer, Roma Dunze still got the knee thing. Montez Sweat to Marcus Walker. I mean, I would expect most of those guys are going to play. Really, you're just looking at Keenan Allen at this point.
Yeah, it kind of seems like he's like the main guy that you're kind of concerned about. Obviously, Rome he obviously played most of the game, or if not all of the game on Sunday night. So you're not too concerned about him. You're just kind of curious to see, how much is that knee bugging him still, and how much is that kind of limiting his play. But for the most part, I mean, guys are going to get bruised up, obviously, here in the first couple weeks. But if you are participating in some regards, I would probably say that you're likely to play on Sunday. Obviously, we'll see the final injury report today on Friday. But it'll be interesting to see, if anyone else is, takes a step back or whether they just kind of continue with the status quo and continue to improve or just continue with their status.
Yeah, keep an eye out for my Twitter page and for Bears Insider. We're gonna have the Friday injury report later today. If you're listening live, obviously that's not out yet. If you're listening after the fact, I'm sure maybe you've already seen it. I want to dive into our preview segments here, but first, I mean, like sort of big picture scope, as we said at the top, like it's hard to make adjustments week to week. It's hard to really completely, you can't really completely change. You got issues on the offensive line. That's not going to, you can't just flip a switch. Ryan Bates is hurt. So you can't put him in there. He's your top backup. And with him out, like there's not really a better option. You're going to be going forward with these five. Matt Eberflus said this week on Wednesday, there's no changes in the offensive lineup. Nothing's changing. So they need all five of those guys to play better. What does improvement look like for you, Michael? It's only 3 practices, it's only 1 week, but what does improvement look like this week? What do you want to see out of the O-line?
Not giving up 7 sacks, right? Isn't that just like the bare minimum, right? You just want, obviously you're not going to get a perfect performance. Obviously the Colts that defensive line is pretty battered at this point. So I think the expectation should be, you should be giving Caleb Williams time in the pocket, and then you should obviously be creating holes for the running game. I think that's I think it would be crazy to assume that the Colts aren't going to get any pressure on, Caleb and maybe not end up with a couple sacks here and there. But listen, with the guys that you have, in that group, you just need to make sure you're doing the bare minimum that's protecting him, looking like you know where you're going, not missing the communication like you have the first couple weeks. I don't really want to see too many videos posted during the week of, Nate Davis just running aimlessly or guys completely missing blocks. Like that shouldn't be happening in week 3 of the football season. Obviously, some guys are going to get, overpressured. Some guys are going to, miss opportunities. That just happens. That's the game of football. Obviously, the other side of the line is also paid a lot of money to, go after the quarterback. But you just need better communication, and you need to have that consistency that we just haven't seen in the first couple weeks. And that's, looking like you guys are all on the same page, well aware of what the assignment is, what the play calling is, and just looking competent. I think that's the biggest thing, which those aren't really, groundbreaking things. Those aren't really things that anyone should be like, whoa, like the expectations are so high. You just need to look like a competent offensive line that can move the ball down the field and protect your rookie quarterback.
I think plays where, like in that fourth quarter last week when Darnell Wright just completely whiffed and it looked really bad on the tape, and it led to that the 7th and final sack for Caleb Williams, basically ended the game. They had a couple more plays after that, but it was essentially over at that point. Plays like that are going to happen. Like guys are going to get beat.
Sure. Yeah.
You will take that. Even obviously you don't want that from your number 10 overall pick a year ago, but it's the communication things that I think are unacceptable and will get cleaned up. Like I think just looking at what, the struggles they've had against some of these stunts, it's all just communication and being on the same page with the guy next to you. I really do think that that's going to improve as the season goes along. I mean, the Texans kind of showed other teams where the Bears are struggling right now, and it's very evident and very apparent. And I'm sure the Colts will do some of that, even with a defensive line that's pretty banged up and maybe not as scary as the first 2 that the Bears faced. But I gotta think that that's going to improve. I mean, that's just a communication thing. That's just getting used to the guy next to you. You kind of thought that the Bears would already be in a good place with all that, and maybe that's why it's so worrisome that they weren't to start this season. But those are fixable issues, and I'm okay with a tackle getting beat one-on-one every once in a while. You got to clean up the things that are fixable and the things that just come down to communication.
Well, Sean, I'm kind of curious just to see what you heard for this week of, obviously, during training camp, we heard a lot about the cadence issues. Is that something at all that you feel like is maybe an issue at all? Just Caleb's cadence, maybe that's throwing guys off, or is it just, getting the plays in and communicating, from the inside, from the center, and and Caleb, and just going to the outside after that. Is that an issue at all? Just the cadence?
I don't know that it's the cadence. I think a lot of it is these guys, especially on those stunts, like you got to react after the snap, and that's just not happening right now. I will say Caleb mentioned a couple interesting things about just like the getting up to the line of scrimmage faster, and something as simple as when he's, you see him put his hands over his ears when he's getting the play call or whatever. You see that with quarterbacks all the time when it's loud. And he said, sometimes he's taken a couple steps towards the Bears sideline, towards the offensive coordinator. And he doesn't need to do that when he's listening to the play call, because then he's got to walk back. And it sounds like a little thing, but every second counts, because the quicker you get up to the line of scrimmage, the more time on the play clock you have to assess what the defense looks like, the more time for you as a quarterback, and also for your offensive lineman and for your center to sort of read what's going on in front of you. And so little things like that can make a difference. And maybe that's just part of being, part of life with a rookie quarterback. I mean, he's coming from a college system where everything was coming from the sidelines, and it might have been to his benefit to not just look over there, but to walk a little closer and get a good read on what the signals were. But that's not the case in the NFL anymore. And that's not the case at high level college football anymore, now that they have the headsets. I think he'll learn from that. I think I was listening to another interesting thing. This is kind of a tangent, but while we're talking about it, something Aaron Rodgers does and does really well and likes with his teams. And you see it with the Jets last night. Like when he's giving the play call to his team in the huddle, his offensive linemen are facing the direction where the play is going. Like they don't have to turn around and they can go find their spot. Like they are facing that direction. They just take a few steps forward and they're ready to go. And again, really minor things, but that makes a big difference.
Sure. And those things are kind of interesting, right? Because when we are, during training camp, during OTAs, we continuously keep hearing from Matt Eberflus. Well, he's got to get down, the differences between the college game and the professional game, the procedural stuff and that kind of stuff. And when you're listening to that, you're like, well, duh, obviously he's got to figure that out.
Yeah.
And how hard can that be? But like when you're in college for 3 years and you're used to being closer to the sideline, you're used to doing something, and you haven't really, played in a game as much as these guys don't really play preseason games anymore. It's an adjustment. It's an adjustment to just being closer to the huddle, not going to the sideline after doing something for 3 years. And, does that make the difference between, Darnell Wright making sure that he's blocking a pass rusher? I don't know. I don't know if he can go full on and say that that's the difference of why, the offensive line is struggling. But those things do matter. That leads to why there might be a delay of game. That does lead to why there could be a false start and that sort of stuff because of the miscommunication. So, listen, it's good that they're realizing all that sort of stuff, and it's good that he's realizing what needs to be done on that part. But eventually you just got to start to do it, and you got to get through it. And it'll be really interesting to see how much, if at all, does the operation look differently against the Colts on Sunday.
Yeah. That was another interesting nugget too that you kind of alluded to there too. Is like the hash marks are literally closer to the sideline in college. Like they can see their coaches a lot better. And maybe that does take a game or two to get used to at the NFL level. All right, we're going to dive into our pregame segments here, our Bears Colts preview. We're going to start with our game inside the game. Michael, what's your position matchup to watch? What Bears group and what Colts group are you excited to see go head-to-head this week?
I'll start with, let's go with the running attack. I just running attack versus just in general the Colts defense. Obviously, you can focus in on the defensive line, obviously, because they'll be essential in stopping that. But listen, I feel like we need to see something different with this offense, especially running the ball. The first couple weeks, Caleb shouldn't be leading the team in rushing yards. It shouldn't look like Justin Fields, like he's the one who's kind of running around and, picking yards. Like this is a Colts team that, Green Bay, obviously, I know their offense is, even without Jordan Love, that's an offense that knows each other really well and has been playing together for a while. So I don't know if it's fair for Bears fans to be just like, run the Packers offense and you'll win the game. Like it's not as easy as that. But you do need to run the ball. You got to get DeAndre Swift involved. You got to get Herbert involved, and we got to figure out what are we doing here with Roschon Johnson. Like, I feel like we didn't get a concrete answer from Shane Waldron this week, where he was good enough to play special teams, but isn't good enough to play at the running back position. I don't really know how that works, but you just got to get that running attack going, and that's going to be essential to your offensive success. We talked about the first couple weeks how important that was going to be for a rookie quarterback. You didn't see that, then you saw Caleb Williams and the offensive line kind of struggle because of that. So you need to get the running attack going, whether that's throwing in Herbert, who can pick up 5 yards here or there, whether that's throwing in Swift and getting Roschon Johnson in there. You just got to get the running attack going, because if you don't get that going, I feel like it's just going to be the same old thing we saw the last couple of weeks here.
This could be one of those games where, I think back to the Nagy years when there was that game, he hardly ran the ball, and then, it's completely overcorrected the next week. And this is the perfect opponent for that. Rick asks in the comments, he says over under 125 rushing yards versus the Colts. And yeah, like I could see this being a game where the Bears run the ball 30, 35 times, just keep pounding it on the ground, just because they need to get that going. And, Shane Waldron talked about too, how he firmly believes, he was asked this by Mark Potash over at the Sun-Times, he firmly believes that when you get your offensive line in a rhythm in the run game, it really, even though run blocking and pass blocking are so different, it really does give the whole group confidence, even in that passing game. Because if you're able to pick up 3, 4, 5 yards of rush and keep the chains moving, you get into a little bit more rhythm, you tire out the defense. I mean, he really seems to believe that is going to make a huge difference for this offense. And I mean, with the opponent, and I mean, the Colts are dead last against the run. I agree, Michael, that this is an opportunity to really do that for the Bears. And yeah, I don't know what to make of the Roschon thing. Not a single snap on offense. Travis Homer's been out there a lot. I mean, they like Homer as a blocker. And he is a big dude. Like, he's pretty thick for a running back, but you want to see Roschon at some point. Yeah, I do agree with you on that point.
And I think this kind of goes back to what, Matt Eberflus talked about on Monday when he was asked about, the pressure situation, like what frustrates you more. And if you are able to run the ball, even get like 3 yards, 5 yards, that makes it a much manageable third down situation, as opposed to continuously dealing with 3rd and 10, second and 12, or that sort of stuff. Like, that just helps. I would agree with you. Like, that helps your offense mentally, just to see the ball move down the field, right? It doesn't have to be like this big, like, it doesn't have to be a 15-yard play. It doesn't have to be a 30-yard play. It can just be 3 or 4 yards, and that makes this play calling much, easier when you're on 3rd down, or even 4th down if you want to go for it at midfield, as opposed to just having to pick up, a big play here or there. So, I think that's the reason why it's going to be really important to get this running attack going. Not only just because, obviously it'll bleed clock. It'll give, Anthony Richardson less time to, have the ball in his hands, but it also just kind of reinforces that, you can really open things up for Caleb Williams in their passing attack if you are able to run the ball and put them in easier situations to succeed.
Yeah, definitely. My game within the game, my position battle to watch, if you will, is going to be those Bears defensive ends. This is a little counterintuitive here. The Bears defensive ends against Anthony Richardson, in the fact that they got to wrap this dude up. Like, he is a quarterback that maybe you can get to, you can get close to, but he is a monster of a human being. He is like huge and tough to bring down, and they're going to have to finish. I mean, that's what it's going to come down to is finishing. I do think that they're going to be able to get in there a few times against these Colts tackles. And it's going to, that's almost the easy part against this guy. Not that that's easy. I can't really even speak to that. That's unfair of me to say, but bringing down Anthony Richardson is not an easy task. And it hasn't been through the first couple of games. He's only been sacked 3 times. I know he's thrown some interceptions, and that's in and of itself, that's a win too. Like if you can hurry him, if you can rush him, he will make some mistakes. And so I think that is really a key matchup to watch in this one.
I think that'll be a really interesting matchup because that will lead into my other matchup that I was kind of considering. As I saw, I think it was Brisker who said the other day that he kind of wanted to dare Anthony Richardson to throw around. And if you're able to get that pressure, listen, Anthony Richardson has shown under pressure, sure, he can escape the pass rush and he can pick up some yards, but he also turns the ball over. Like he's a rookie essentially after, missing most of last year. He's still learning the game too. And you've got a Bears secondary that is really going to take advantage of a lot of mistakes if he's able to make those mistakes. So I would definitely agree with you. You had a good story about Montez Sweat. Maybe the stats aren't out there right now, but he's creating a lot of pressure and a lot of attention on the offensive line, which is opening things up for other guys like Dexter and Taylor and Andrew Billings as well. So if you get pressure onto him and you don't let him sit in the pocket, that really opens things up. Even if you don't get him, that Bears secondary and even the linebacking core can take advantage of Anthony Richardson kind of throwing things like we've kind of seen on the wrong foot and that kind of stuff.
Okay, we're moving on to our most valuable Bear. I'm going to take a victory lap here. I had Gervon Dexter. You had Montez Sweat last week. Dexter with a sack, Sweat with a quiet day. So that's another win for me.
Some people would argue that Sweat should have had that sack, but
Dexter knocked him over on his way to the quarterback.
Yeah.
So I'm 2-0 because I had DJ Moore in week 1. You had DeAndre Swift. Obviously, Swift hasn't done much, but this is your week to pick first. So Michael, who is your most valuable Bear in this game? You are up first.
I feel like I shouldn't go back to the well, but I feel like I'm between the Bears secondary and the running attack. But I'll go with DeAndre Swift. I think he's due to have a big game. Maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree and I'm just going to get burned again. But you paid a lot of money to this guy. I think there'll be some scheme adjustments as well where I feel like he'll look to run more on the inside as opposed to the outside as well. So I think there's got to be some changes. He's shown his ability to do it. Obviously, I know he did it with a really talented, Eagles offensive line last year, one of the best in the league. So maybe you're like, well, those are different situations than him running behind this Bears offensive line. But I think if the Bears are going to succeed, I think it needs to happen with DeAndre Swift having a major presence. And maybe that's him having less, carries. Maybe that is having Herbert and Roschon Johnson in there more often. But I do think that, DeAndre Swift will play a big role in this. I think he'll, kind of show you the reason why the Bears made him their priority once free agency started. And they really need to start to run there. So I'm going to go with him just based on the need of this running game needs to go on in order for this team to succeed.
Yeah. I had him number 1 on my big board coming into today. And so, I would have made the same choice if I was picking first. Rick in the chat says Caleb is his MVP. I was also thinking long and hard about Caleb. I keep coming back to I really do think the Bears are going to run the football a lot. Anybody else out there in the chat want to throw their most valuable Bear in the comments? We'll throw it up on the screen. CJ says Jalen Johnson.
I would agree with it. That was something I was considering too.
I like that pick. Here's who I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with Kevin Byard.
Oh,
and I for the same reason you were mentioning the secondary, I do think that if these pass rushers can get to Anthony Richardson and make him uncomfortable, he will throw some footballs into some dangerous spaces. And I think Kevin Byard is back there, playing center field. I think he's gonna. I'm basically betting on my belief that Kevin Byard is going to get a pick in this game because. Yeah. I was thinking about all these guys in the secondary, and I do like CJ's pick of Jalen Johnson. But the way that teams have not thrown towards Jalen, I know he did have a pick in week 1, but that was kind of a desperation last ditch effort there from Will Levis. I think mostly through the flow of the game, teams are not really throwing near him. And that's why I'm going to go with Kevin Byard. I think he's going to have a big moment here in this game, or at least I hope so. I'm betting on it here, Michael.
Yeah, I think both of our picks are kind of like, if both of those players do well, I think the Bears are going to win, right? I feel like it's one of those things where the secondary has looked really good in the first couple of games. They limited C.J. Stroud for the most. Obviously, Nico Collins, no one's really succeeded in stopping him so far this year, and I don't think many, a lot of defenses will, stop him much this year. So I don't know how much you really put that against the Bears secondary, but I do think that, this Bears secondary has shown that they're able to compete, and if the Bears defensive, ends and even up the middle continuously, pressure Anthony Richardson, he's shown that predictability of, throwing off the scramble, just heaving it up there. And Byard has shown a lot of good experience of he'll know where to go, where the ball is going to be. He'll read the situation pretty well. So, I would definitely agree that seems like a really good pick.
Okay, one surprise prediction. What's your surprise prediction for this game?
I think my surprise prediction is going to be that Caleb throws for more than 150 yards. I think he gets over the hump.
Okay.
I think the Bears are going to run the ball pretty well, and I think that opens up things in the passing lane for him. I think that allows him to connect with DJ Moore. That allows him to connect with Rome Odunze as well, Cole Kmet up the middle. I think that really opens things up, and I think that he'll have more time in the pocket. He's shown that ability to, get the ball out pretty quickly, even though he is facing constant pressure. And I'm sure that the Colts are going to pick up what the Houston Texans did and just continuously blitz him and continuously make him make throws. So I do think that'll be my surprise pick, though. I think he goes for over 100 yards for the first time. I think he'll go over 150, which, obviously isn't that big of a benchmark in today's NFL. But for a developing quarterback who's trying to get his footing in this league, I think that'll get things going.
Rick says no sacks allowed. Yeah, that is a bold one. That is a bold one.
I don't know if I can.
I'm not ready to go there yet. I'm not ready to go there yet. My surprise prediction is I think they keep Jonathan Taylor under 75 yards. Is that a surprise? I feel like that would be a surprise.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that seems like a surprise, especially for how good he is and how good that offensive line is. Like when you're talking about offensive line goals, I think the Colts are one of them, right? Isn't everyone like at least an All-Pro or a Pro Bowl offensive lineman? Like that's ridiculous.
They always seem to have a good line.
So, I think Jonathan Taylor has a lot of good potential to have a big day, especially since the Bears have, I think they slowed things down. Mixon obviously came out of the game for the Texans, so maybe that slowed down their running attack. But the Bears have shown vulnerabilities of giving up some rushing yards. So I think that would be a big win for the Bears, but kind of surprising if they are able to limit him below 75.
Right now, the Bears defense ranks 13th against the run. They're giving up 107 yards a game, and obviously they were number one last year. They were really good. I think what I like here is the underlying metrics. I like ESPN Analytics does some good stuff with charting the linemen on both sides of the ball, their win rate against the run, against the pass. And you look at those metrics and the Bears are one I forget if they're first in pass rush win rate. That's a tough one to say, or against the run. But either way, they're first in one and second in the other. Like they're really high in both categories. I think those underlying metrics kind of favor the Bears to keep seeing that rushing total improve throughout the year. I mean, it's essentially the same group of guys. And so I really do think that they're going to be, top 5, certainly top 10 against the run by the end of the year. I do think they slow Jonathan Taylor a little bit and keep him under 75 yards. And I think if you do that, that's a win.
Yeah, I think that is a big win, especially because if you can't run the ball, obviously that forces Anthony Richardson to throw the ball. And if he's making mistakes like we've kind of seen him make in the first couple of weeks, I think that really allows your defense to kind of feast and get a good opportunity to kind of limit the Colts and what they're able to do. Because, in the first couple of games, I thought this stat was kind of really interesting that I saw from the Colts, where they've only had, I think it's like roughly like 19 minutes of possession time in their first, 2 games. Like that compared to like 40 minutes from their opponents. So obviously, it's been very clear that the game plan has been, that the offenses are going to kind of keep up against this Colts defense. They're going to stay, whether they're running the ball or whether they're just, taking advantages of mistakes from Anthony Richardson in the offense. This Colts offense hasn't had too much time to, be on the field. So I would agree. I think that's going to be a major key and kind of help the Bears win this game on the road.
All right, who you got, Michael? What's your prediction? Who's winning this game?
I forget what the line is at this point. I think it's like a 2.5, like plus 2.5 for the Bears. I think the Bears win this game. This, I feel like, really opens a critical stretch for this team if they want to make the playoffs and if they want to figure things out. You're going against a Colts team that I think has shown that it's able to play pretty well, but that defensive line is depleted. I think that really opens things up for Caleb Williams and the offense. So I have the Bears winning 21-17. I think there'll be a good, fair share of Bears fans. It's in Indianapolis. They'll take the drive down. So I don't know how much of an advantage that will kind of play into this game. But I do think that the Bears figure things out offensively. I think they're able to run the ball pretty well. And I think we're feeling much better than we did after 2 weeks with the Bears win here.
I have the Bears winning as well. I did not know your score. I'm going 1 point lower on each. I'm going Bears 20, Colts 16. I think we're going to see a fair number of field goals in this game.
Sure.
And you know what? As long as the Bears are scoring points, I think you're happy. And I think the Bears defense is going to continue to bend, don't break. I really do think that's going to be their recipe to success is keeping teams out of the end zone. And I think that they'll be able to do that against the Colts. And I do think they'll be able to slow Jonathan Taylor, like I was saying. And it has to look better on the offensive side. Like that was pretty rough on Sunday. I do think that while maybe it's not going to be perfect yet, this stuff takes weeks, not days. And it's only, they only have 7 days in between these two games. I do think that the offensive line is going to figure some of this stuff out, the communication stuff, as we touched on earlier. That's going to improve. I do think it's going to get better. I think it looks a little bit better on Sunday. And I like your thought with Caleb Williams. I do think he is going to be able, this isn't really a surprise prediction, but I think we finally get like a highlight. I think it's time that some big play for Caleb is going to look really great on tape and people are going to be really excited about it.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I feel like we've seen some glimpses where it's kind of like that's an impressive throw. Like that was that's a throw that we haven't really seen too much from Bears quarterbacks. But I would agree. I think CJ said it. I think he will pass his first touchdown. I think that'll definitely happen. I think it really opens things up for him, and I think it's a good momentum setter because then you head into that matchup against the Rams in the next week where. I don't think that defense is playing as well as it has in the past. The offense is just depleted at this point. Like we don't know whether Cooper Kupp is going to play. They're already missing a couple big guys heading into that matchup. So I think this really sets things up pretty well where you get some momentum, you figure things out, and then you head into that Rams game at home in a week, and maybe you can really open things up at home.
Rick says, anybody worried about Rome? I wouldn't be. I mean, he played – he did say that he wasn't 100% after that game, but he also said that wasn't an excuse. Like I'm out here, I'm playing. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll play in this game. I think especially if Keenan's out again, like they're going to need him. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. All right, we got to wrap it up here, guys. Thank you for joining us live on YouTube. If you've been hanging out with us, we really appreciate it. Do us a favor, hit the thumbs up. That's a great way to support the show and to get word out. If you're listening later on Spotify or Apple, do us a favor, leave us a review. We would really appreciate it. Head over to shawlocal.com to read all our work, and please consider subscribing. That is the number one best way to support us and support our work is to subscribe at shawlocal.com. You can also read all of Michael's high school football coverage. Michael, where are you heading tonight? You must have a game. It's Friday night.
I got Brother Rice at Loyola. We got a Friday Night Lights at Loyola now, so that's a new experience for everybody. So I'm gonna check out the Ramblers and the Crusaders there.
That's a big matchup. Check out Michael's Twitter page to follow along on that one. Dwojak94. I'm at Sean_Hammond. Keep an eye out on our Twitter pages. We will let you know next time we're going live. He's Michael Dwojak. I'm Sean Hammond. This has been the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening.